In this video, we're going to be covering how to add items into your XOLights system. This could be items that, for whatever reason, aren't in XOLights, such as specialty items, vendors we don't carry, really old discontinued items that have fallen off the list, anything like that. And you can get those into XOLights in two ways. One, you can upload a spreadsheet. That process is called vendor item upload, and that's typically what you would do if you have a large number of items to add all at once. What we're going to be covering today is more adding items one by one, and that's going to allow you to get a small handful of items, or at least enough that you don't feel like you have to do a spreadsheet and in a fairly efficient and streamlined way. Now, in order to do this process, you have to be logged in as an administrator. When you are logged in, go ahead and click that admin button, and then you'll want to come over here to where it says items. When you click on the items page, you get this page here, and you have the option to come over and click add items to database. This is what you're going to do to add in a new item. First of all, you're going to add in the most basic information for the item. So these fields are the required fields, and that's why they're on this page. Now, notice that you have this drop down for the vendor. These are all the vendors that I have in the system right now. So this list will change as you add or remove vendors. And this will allow you to add items to specific vendors. Now, let's say that you want to add some items that, for whatever reason, don't belong in any of the vendors in your list. I'm going to go ahead and type in a vendor that is not in my list. Now this actually is a vendor that's in XO. This is just one that's not in my list, and so that will work for our training purposes. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in the item number and the item name. Now the name is just what it is, so you don't need to overthink that. It will appear at the top of the page and kind of give the customers an idea of what it's supposed to be. So a lot of times we'll say something like 5 light bronze chandelier, something along those lines. And then the COGS is your cost, and then the price here is the customer's cost. I'm going to go ahead and hit Save Item. And once I do that, I get this pop-up here. For those of you familiar with Expert Edit, this is going to look very familiar because this really is basically the Expert Edit box. And there are a lot of details that you can add in, a lot of things you can do, like socket information, dimensions, sorts, which is how things are categorized. Bulb you'll only fill out if it's actually a light bulb, availability, and then, a few other random things. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on what each of these mean because if you watch our Expert Edit video, that will cover this box in greater detail. There are, however, a few things that I want to make sure we go over, partially because they're really important and partially because some of them are a little bit different than Expert Edit. So first of all, I'm going to go over to upload an image. When I click on that, this box that pops up is actually my computer. So you can browse through on your computer to wherever you have an image saved for the item. Then you just select the image that you want and click Open. Now you're going to get a little pop-up here that says enter a description for your file. Really, all you have to do is click OK. And when that's uploaded here, you can see down here it's appeared. You want to go over and make sure that you click Default to set this as your default image. That's important because if you don't do that, the image will not display. Another thing I want to point out is if you go over here to Basic, you have here a number of really basic fields, your name, your description, your family. Notice in the name and description, the name of the vendor has appeared. The reason for that is since I picked a vendor that is not in XOLights, and this only happens when you pick a vendor that's not in XOLights, in your XOLights anyway, added to your vendor list. it will put the name of the vendor in. The reason for that is if you're adding a vendor that's not in your list, it's going to need to add it somewhere kind of grouped together. So it's created a special vendor for you, and I'll show you more about that in a second. And it's going to put all of the items that don't match a specific vendor in your list into that kind of catch-all vendor. And the reason then that it puts the name of the vendor in the name and description is so that becomes an easy keyword. I could type in Esteluz into my search bar and easily find everything that I had added to that vendor. Now down here, I have delete and submit. Delete would remove the item, obviously, but let me just say that's only going to appear as an option for items that you've added in yourself. So if you go into your catalog and do expert edit on an item for an existing vendor, then that's not going to be an option. However, if you pull up an item that you entered in manually, you will see that delete item option. I'm going to go ahead here and click submit. Now note that it's not giving me any sort of special pop-up or message. That's normal. That's not something to be concerned about. One thing that you should be aware of is once you add an item into the database, it can take up to an hour to appear in the database. And that's just because it takes some time to replicate across the different servers. So during that time, you may not be able to find the item, or you may be able to find it and there may be partial information. For example, you may see data but no image or something along those lines. If it's within the first hour of when you've added that item, that's pretty normal. So check back after that time and it should be appearing correctly. Now let's go over here to admin vendors real quick, just because I want to show you that catch-all vendor that we were talking about. In this particular website, it's called training items. Now, that's not what yours is going to be called. What it's going to do is it's going to take the name of your showroom and put the word items after it. So, for example, if your showroom's name was Hanson Lighting, this vendor would be called Hanson Lighting Items in your vendor list. And this is where every item that you add that doesn't have a matching vendor, this is where it's going to go. So that item that I just barely added, this is where it's going to be. Now I just pulled up the catalog because there's something else I want to show you here. Now let's say that you added an item in, but you didn't get all of the details the way you wanted it, or you had something that you decided you wanted to tweak. If you go into the catalog, and typically you'll just type in the item number and hit search, but I pulled up some sconces here because it has not yet been an hour since I added that item, and so I'm not going to be able to pull it up. However, I can show you what I need to on these items. If you look in the top right corner here, you have E squared. And that's how you pull up the expert edit box for any existing item. So since this is an item of an existing vendor, I don't have the delete option, but I can still tweak the information. And again, if you want to know more about that, you'll want to watch our expert edit video. The reason I want to show you this now is because if you've added some information in for a particular item and you want to go in and tweak that, this is how you're going to do it. You just pull up the catalog, pull up the item, and then hit expert edit, and then you can go in and tweak and adjust or add to any information that on items that you've already added at any time. One last thing that I want to point out here is that you also have the option to add items to the database from an estimate or a wish list. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull up a new, now this is an estimate, and it's from the add edit item screen that you will do this. And also if the wish list screen is basically the same as the add edit item screen, so you could do it from here as well. Now what I'm talking about is down here, add item that isn't in database. If I click on that, ask me to make sure that it really isn't in the database. And then you can see this line that's appeared down here is very similar to what we got when we were on the item screen adding in information for items there. So I'm going to go ahead and add in another item, and we'll just throw in some information real quick here so I can show this to you. Now the quantity and room over here, that's not required. That is information that would only be applied for this particular estimate or wish list. When I hit save on this, it says, would you like to save this item for future use? If I click yes, I'll get that same expert edit box where I can go in and add in the additional information and then have it saved to my catalog. If I click no, okay, so it will add it basically like you see right here. This item is not permanently in the database. This is only going to be on this particular estimate or wish list. And you can add in the additional information, so it says no image available. The only way that you could get an image in there is if you added it permanently into the database and uploaded your own image. So it's a very temporary, very basic way of getting an item on there, and that just so the customer can see it. Now, if you saved it, you could add any additional information you wanted, and then it would also be available in the catalog. So this has been the video on how to add items into XOLights in kind of a one-by-one way. If you have any questions, feel free to use any of our additional resources or to contact our client services department at clientservices@xolights.com.